Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast. It's 1 week till Christmas, guys. Go get your shopping done. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm Illeagle 86. I'm joined as always by Techtic and Nerdbomber, and I have a fun Christmas fact for you all today. Most of you probably know this, or at least some of you probably already know this. Techtic, Nerdbomber, you may already know this. I learned today the hard way that sometimes when you buy something on the internet, it will start being shipped by UPS, and then UPS will say, hey, USPS, here you go. Please deliver this the rest of the way. First of all, do you know that happens? It's a thing that apparently happens quite often.
Yeah, and I hate it.
Yeah, you see where this is going. Did you also know that sometimes when they hand the package off, they drop it and they go, whoops. And then you have to go to both companies to be like, what happened to this package? And also, by the way, UPS and USPS, they hate each other. They think that they think the other company is full of idiots. And they're never willing to blame themselves, obviously. So then you're just screwed. So long story short, there's a package for my father containing a Christmas gift. Shout out to my dad. Hey, Dad, if you're listening. There's a present for you that is hanging somewhere in space between Rossford, Ohio, and my current location. So if you're looking for a Christmas gift from me, that's where it is.
The same thing sort of happened to me today. So we bought your wife a gift. Fun fact. And we did this a while ago. And I'm like, okay, it's weird that it hasn't got here yet. And it has been sitting in limbo, like lost mode, right? So I contact the seller, and their initial response is, oh, okay, well, you can pay for shipping again and we'll send it again. To which I was like, that does not feel like it's my problem. I feel like you should just send it again.
So
they did eventually relent and they are sending it again. But I had a brain fart moment and I texted Techtic and I was like, this is the response that I got. I feel like there has to be a polite way to say, no, I will not pay for shipping the second time.
Right. Well, yeah, these are the trials and tribulations of holiday shopping in a 2024 society. I mean, there were so many robot voice people I had to talk to today to get this problem sorted out. It did wind up getting sorted out, courtesy of the seller. I'm not going to say who the seller was because I don't want to give away a Christmas gift. My dad doesn't listen to the show, but still, just for Christmas purposes. But yeah, it's crazy, man. It's kind of on me. You could make the argument. There's listeners out there right now being like, "Well, the U86, why weren't you tracking the package?" We ordered this gift on Thanksgiving, not even Black Friday. We said, let's jump on it on Thanksgiving. And it started moving, and it got halfway across the country December 5th, and then it just stopped, and it stopped moving. So I gave it like 10 days, and then I was like, all right, I got to do something. And that might have been too long, because now they're going to ship a replacement, but it's probably not going to arrive in time. So you think about this, like we've both had an experience now like this 1 year. Like, how many packages are just sitting in crevices out there in this country that are just unclaimed merchandise waiting to be delivered that's just never being delivered? It has to be a staggering amount of things, right?
So many.
Do you ever just think about that? Like, it blows my mind.
Doesn't it go to like some claiming auction and they just...
Yeah, well, just like you can buy like 100 Amazon packages and you have no idea what's inside. And then they're doing like that auction stuff, like that, like storage wars. I think they do that, but it's crazy. So this is all to say, if you're out there, you're listening, happy holidays. Go check all of your pending deliveries, get some tracking numbers. Because that's the other thing. This is insane. I had the tracking number for it. The tracking number worked on both UPS's website and USPS's website. They joined forces to make a tracking number that was useless in two places. So shout out to both of those companies. FedEx comes out of this looking fresh and clean. So I don't know, maybe use FedEx for your shipping needs. I'm not going to tell you what to do. We have a huge show today. It's the week till Christmas. If you're looking for some last minute gift ideas for folks, well, we're not going to help today because the games we're going to be talking about aren't going to be out by then. In I think every single case. The Game Awards happened, guys. The Game Awards happened last week. We of course got a bunch of awards, but also, and some would argue more importantly, we got a bunch of announcements for stuff that's coming down the pipe in the next year or so. A lot of great looking trailers. We're going to dive into all of those. That's going to be the first half of our show. We're not going to give it short shrift. We're talking a big mega block before our ad break. So no cause for concern, no cause for consternation. We're not going to blast through it too hard. And then we have a movie trailer to talk about.
Just
starring the guy from what is that show?
The Boys?
Boys is great content. Yeah, The Boys. Wow, how did you know what show I was? I guess he's only been in one show.
No,
he's also
been
in
in other stuff.
He was in the new Scream movie, one of the new Scream movies, and he was pretty good.
He was in the new Scream movie?
One of them. One of the recent ones. His name is
Jack
Quaid.
He is Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid's son, FYI.
That's a fun fact. Those are two people I know. Boy, I'm sounding so old. Who's this Jack Quaid guy? And then you bring up Meg Ryan, who hasn't been in a movie in like 20 years. And I'm like, oh, Meg Ryan. We're going to be talking about him. He's in a movie that I think is shamelessly stealing a concept from another movie that was pretty good. So we're going to get into that. But first, the Game Awards. This is the big one, guys. I mean, with, E3 kind of going the way of the dodo, this is one of the bigger signposts throughout the year where we get a bunch of big announcements that are kind of not like, Microsoft doing all of its stuff and Sony doing all of its stuff. We got the good old mix-a-rooney here. We got so much of everything. I'm going to take the wheel, as I often do, and I'm going to start at the end because the last thing that was announced, the quote-unquote one more thing at the Game Awards, was, of course, the thing I was most excited about. And if anyone's been listening to this show for more than like an episode, they know what game I'm talking about. Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. This is Naughty Dog's return to, I don't know, giving us stuff. I don't know what's the return to exactly. They're not doing any Last of Us stuff for now. They're giving us a completely new IP. We got a trailer for this that it didn't show really any gameplay. I guess it showed 5 seconds of gameplay, like at the very end. Here's the thing with Naughty Dog. They have complete carte blanche at this point. They can do whatever they want. And based on my experience with The Last of Us and Uncharted, if they're making a third person anything, which is what it looks like this is, I'm in. It does certainly help that the story and the story world that we saw seemed pretty darn compelling. So like I'm in anyways.
I just like the tech choice that they made, like the retro sci-fi future, like the disc track. It's an excellent vibe.
I mean, okay, I'm gonna say something, and don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on this, but I felt like they kind of stole that a little bit from Guardians of the Galaxy.
I did note that as well, but the difference is Guardians of the Galaxy had just retro technology from Earth, whereas this was like integrated retro tech into the spacecraft.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah, I'll grant you that for sure. Like, and I think we'll see when we get to it. I think there was at least one other game in this showcase that actually kind of did the same thing. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy was a real globe-trotting piece of media, right? Or trailblazing is what I meant to say. Trailblazing piece of media in the sense that it created this vibe and this aesthetic that we have seen countless games and movies and shows try desperately to copy for the past 10 years, right? There is definitely some copying happening here. Like, I will grant you that. I think the vibe is completely different, but I think that the retro tech thing, yeah, you could argue they took some inspiration there.
I don't know if I would say the vibe is completely different though.
The vibe is completely different. It's so much darker. She's got issues. Like, she's not Star-Lord. She's not like dancing.
I would say play the Guardians of the Galaxy video game and read the comics. It is darker than what they show you in the movies.
Well, sure, but that's not what people are copying or trying to copy, right? I mean, maybe they're trying to copy the game. I haven't played the game, but like,
you should.
9 times out of 10 when someone, well, yeah, so I've heard 9 times out of 10 when someone's trying to copy Guardians of the Galaxy, they're trying to copy the MCU, and again, not without cause. I think I want to hone in not even so much on any of the content, but I do think in all the stuff I watched, this was probably graphically the high watermark.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It was like unbelievable. Like, it was, I think even, considering recent showcases of like State of Play and Xbox games, like this was maybe the best we've seen in a while.
Yeah.
There have not been a lot of things that have like made me stop and be like, okay, this console generation was extremely warranted. And don't get me wrong, with the SSD loading and everything like that has been a major improvement. But from a graphical standpoint, I don't think I've seen anything that's really blown me out of the water. And this is probably the first, at least trailer. And I know this is all cinematic trailer stuff, but this was like, wow, okay, we are in a next gen.
Yeah. And I'm trying very hard to not just look at it with rose-colored glasses, right? Because again, I'm going to play this no matter what. This is probably day one buy, which for me is very, very rare. But this is probably day one buy. So like, I'm trying to approach it objectively, right? But I have to admit that is very hard for me. I think this is going to be great. I think we're going to get a lot more information between now and when the game comes out.
Yeah, I think I would have liked to see a little bit more combat. Like, we do obviously see, it looks like it's going to be like melee-ish third-person combat from the little like snippet that we saw at the end of the trailer, but I'd love to see more. And obviously it's early days. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not expecting full gameplay at this point, but my interest is piqued and I want to see what kind of game it's going to be.
Yeah, we've had this conversation before, and it's always a debate worth revisiting because, as we go through a lot of these, we're going to see, I think, both ends of the spectrum in terms of trailer content being purely cinematic or purely gameplay driven. And a bunch of signposts in between. I personally am a big cinematic guy. And, I think there's a really good argument against that because it doesn't really show you what you're going to be doing. It's not showing you something you're going to actually see and experience, right? So, like, I get that.
Well, I think my favorite balance is when they show mostly cinematic, but then you get, like, a little montage of gameplay at the end of that's, like, 20 to 30 seconds. Like, I know we saw, like, a 5 second she's jumping off a rock or something at an enemy and slashing.
Yeah.
But, like, you know how they have, like, a montage of some of the gameplay? I just wanted a little montage.
Well,
just a little.
Yeah, the gold standard, and that gives me a good segue into the next big daddy, I would say. I think Borderlands did that really well, where it was half cinematic and half really just showing you gameplay. Now, I wanted to make sure, we were always going to talk about this, of course, because it's one of the bigger announces. But I'm torn on this one because I don't know that I'm going to play it. And I think the gap, sorry?
How can you not? Have you ever been on any of the previous Borderlands?
It's funny you should ask that because I just dusted off on a whim the Borderlands, whatever the remaster is for the Switch, the first one, and I'm playing it right now. Wow. And I'm finding it to be an immensely frustrating experience.
I will say it is. It's markedly better when you're playing with friends.
Yeah. Enemies are, and I don't know that this is shown much in the trailer. And by the way, sorry, I don't want to slam on Borderlands, but they're all bullet sponges.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole thing. And I think the aesthetic is really cool. I think the story world that they've created is really, really cool. I also think that in this trailer specifically, the art form of showing cinematics and gameplay in the same trailer, the graphical style of the gameplay and the cinematic was just too jarringly different for me. Different. Where when they made the cut, I was like, oh, okay, well, we're definitely in gameplay now. And it wasn't super seamless. And that's me picking nits probably, right? But the cinematics,
they were waiting for the bass to drop. And I'm not even being funny. Borderlands has always done something special where they just absolutely nail it with the soundtrack and the trailer. And that transition needed to happen synonymous with the soundtrack. It was intended to be jarring.
On balance, Borderlands 4 was probably, again, I'm kind of going to, I guess, just go based on what I think were high watermarks. I think Borderlands 4 was a high watermark. I think that was a pretty well-constructed trailer. I think it showed fans of the franchise, because again, I don't know that I'm one, but I think it probably showed fans of the franchise everything they wanted to see.
Yeah, I got to look at some of the new playable characters. I got the construct for what the story is going to be, those robotic, futuristic-looking things versus all of your standard, typical Borderlands enemies, not Emily.
Yes, cyborgs, psychos. Hell yeah, let's go.
And they showed you all of the guns that you might be able to get, which, honestly, at this point, the Borderlands guns are all kind of the same because they're so random. They're I didn't get too much out of the guns themselves, but you saw exactly what the game is going to be. And that's pretty much all I needed.
And again, this is fine, but based on watching the trailer, I have no anticipation that the core experience is going to change, and as a result I can't really imagine it's going to be super for me, but it's certainly going to be a big deal and probably a pretty great game. So that's another one I wanted to highlight a little bit more up front. My personal favorite trailer, because I think that I'm splitting hairs here, but I think Intergalactic was it's the thing I'm most excited for. It's probably the best game that we saw, but my favorite trailer that we saw, and this is weird because I'm not even a fan of this franchise either. The Witcher 4, I think, had the best trailer in the whole thing in terms of just if you want to count cinematic graphics, the graphics. I think the story of this trailer, this was to me Assassin's Creed kind of vibes where the trailer has a story and it gives you an idea of who the protagonist of the game is going to be, what they're going to be able to do, what kind of enemies they're going to encounter. But it does it in a self-contained story that in some sense has a pretty devastating payoff in this one in particular. I mean, what is your guys' Witcher exposure and experience? Because I have not played a single second of any of the games. I started watching the show and I stopped. So like, I'm very outside of this ecosystem, but I thought this trailer was just a very cool showcase for what they have coming.
I've not read the books, I've not played the games, and I've not watched the show at all. I've been told so many times that I should play The Witcher 3, but it is such a long game from what I understand, and I feel like the character carries over, so you need to have the back lore. And the thing that kind of piqued my interest about The Witcher 4, and I don't know if this is a character who's been like a side tertiary character in the previous games or in the show or in the books, but it seems like it's a new main character. And so maybe this is like my jumping in point.
As far as I understand, there is no tie-in.
I think she is a side character. And again, I know very, very little, so like, do not quote me on this. But the name Ciri sounds quite familiar to me.
But I think that's
a
one
really
of the
ridiculous reason.
We talked about with Assassin's Creed all the time is that the franchise is so, well known that unless you're willing to play through every single game, like being able to switch to a different character in the same franchise gives people a new jumping in point where you don't necessarily need to know all the lore. And if that's what they're doing here, I love that for me because you guys know me. I love fantasy games. And I've just kind of been watching this like, these are highly acclaimed games. I wish I could jump in, but I don't have the time to devote to 3 other epic length games. Now, here we are. I can jump right in. Maybe, hopefully.
I think you should. I mean, even like lore and history aside, this trailer was just absolutely phenomenal. My notes were literally no notes.
Yeah, I mean, again, it didn't give us any. This one gave us literally 0 gameplay. So like, if that's what you're in this for, you didn't get it. But I still think it delivered a very strong sense of the experience that you can expect and what the main thrust of the story might wind up being. So I thought that was really good. This is tough because so I mentioned that Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet, was the quote unquote one more thing. The theoretical final reveal before that was for a game that is apparently a very big deal, but I know nothing about. And I'm referring to Okami 2. Capcom developing a sequel to Okami. I have never heard of Okami, so I imagine it's a game that came out a long, long time ago. What I will say is that... Sorry?
You're a wolf. That's all I know about it. You're a wolf.
Oh, you're a wolf.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Your wolf with like fiery trails.
The visual style of this game, assuming that this is in fact what the visual style of the actual game is going to be and not just the trailer, is extremely striking. We didn't really see anything throughout the rest of the showcase that looked anything like this. So
what's interesting about this one was I wanted to be able to speak intelligently on this one. So I looked up Okami 1. And the animation vibes I got were Parappa the Rapper meets Final Fantasy lore. If that makes any sense to anybody, that's what I'm expecting here.
Yeah, it makes little sense to me, but I appreciate you doing the due diligence.
It's like the animation style of Parappa the Rapper with like the phantasmic creatures and like lore of Final Fantasy.
This was a strange one, like I said, for me, because, and chime off in the comments or on Blue Sky, like, I'm sure I'm missing something here. Like, when the nameplate for Okami 2 came up, I'm sure it was a big deal for folks. But for me, I was like, I don't really know what this is. There's a minute-long trailer that showed us something, but not a whole lot. And there were other trailers like that we'll get to. But that was, like I said, one of the final reveals. So I felt it worth bringing up now. As far as big franchises getting kind of additional content, one of the other big names that feels worth bringing up is Elden Ring Nightreign. I'm going to give this one full marks for having maybe the worst graphics that we saw. Like,
dude, yes.
And this
looks like a Monster Hunter game, which is like they're 3D, they're realistic, but they're like kind of choppy, and that's why it falls into that block.
I don't remember the standard Elden Ring because this is a standalone co-op experience. I don't remember the main Elden Ring game looking this bad, and it has never been my art style, and it's a main reason why I never got into Elden Ring. That and the fact that it's just too freaking hard and I don't like that type of game. But like this just seemed really rough graphically, which is confusing.
Yeah, like I'm of course not directly comparing. There are certain games in here that are designed to be like 80s indie style, and like obviously graphically those are not on the same playing field as this game, but like this game being, a whatever AAA title that like is ostensibly trying to be graphically something, like it just kind of missed the mark on that. I agree. I don't remember the first one having this problem or whether or not it did. I think most fans of the franchise, or diehard fans in particular, would probably tell you that the graphics are just very secondary to what they're trying to do. But to me, that also feels like a cop-out, especially when you put it next to games, like Intergalactic, which I hate to keep going back to, but like graphically it was amazing. Other games we'll get to, Borderlands 4, The Witcher 4, like there were so many games that just looked so much better than this. So you kind of wonder in that context, like, is From Software like losing some race in some way? Like, do they not have the staff? I don't know what it is.
It is worth mentioning. It is a co-op RPG game, so there's something, if you like co-op games, to get excited for.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely don't want to discount that. Co-op. We love co-op here at the Online Warriors podcast, and this is no exception to that. I think that kind of rounds out like the super big reveals. So I'm going to kind of start jumping around now to things I really want to make sure we cover. I'm going to stick with co-op, and this is one that I know Nerdbomber was particularly enamored with. We've got some Hazelight experience here at the podcast. All of us have played It Takes Two. I've played A Way Out. I didn't finish it. I don't know if you guys played any of it at all, but long story short, we have co-op experience and Hazelight co-op experience. So seeing the unveil of Split Fiction was pretty cool. I mean, look, Hazelight has established at this point that this is their thing, right? And they've established through, in particular, It Takes Two, that they're good at it. So there's kind of no reason to believe that this is not going to be super good. And in particular,
it's such an original
the story world
concept. Like,
yeah,
they're two authors. One writes fantasy, one writes sci-fi, and they're pulled into some weird simulation where their written worlds kind of get thrown together, and you end up working through both genres of game, which is super cool. And not only did they dabble into like theme genres, but even it looks like there's some 2D, it looks like there's some 3D platforming. They've really kind of gone all out and kind of approached every single aspect of game and theme that they could here.
What's interesting too about the two genres is it allowed them to insert various tropes and things that you've seen in other games. Illeagle, I know you probably got excited about the morph ball, right? That little kind of tie-in. And so you can see that, you can see this in book writing too, right? Everything takes inspiration from something else. So it was nice to see these various inspiration jumping off points that they incorporated in these two completely separate worlds.
Bro, and dragons.
Yeah, I mean...
Fuck yeah.
Well, the other thing I will say is that, again, I don't think we need to dwell super hard on this one because it's going to be amazing. This is going to be a big deal. I think it just deserves to be said that, like, Hazelight they're walking the walk. Like, they are so earnest about wanting great co-op experiences, and they're very earnestly trying to bridge gaps among players. Like, when you dissect the fact that they're basically combining different play styles, different gameplay styles, and different genres of game, like, they are actively seeking, friends or couples who are like, well, I like fantasy, I like sci-fi. Hey, here's a game for both of us. Like, they truly, they're really into what they're selling, and I respect the hell out of that. So this is going to be awesome. March 6th, 2025 for this one. I don't know how many other dates we have. That one I know we have a firm date on. If I missed any other dates, I apologize. I think most of them are otherwise just, hey, it's coming in 2025. We'll see when exactly. So yeah, Split Fiction looks cool. Another one, and again, jumping around, looked really cool to me, looked particularly original and also star-studded, was Dispatch.
This was my number one. This was my number one.
When they flashed the splash screen saying from the makers of The Wolf Among Us and The Walking Dead, and it wasn't Telltale, I was so jazzed. No shade to the people who are at Telltale and its new iteration now, but those two games, I feel like were very formative to me in my, I don't want to say my early gaming career because I've been gaming since I was a kid, but as I was getting more mature and discovering how much I really valued storytelling in games, those two games like took the cake. I loved them. And the fact that now some of those people are working on this game and it looks so freaking cool and unique, dude, I'm in.
And like everyone knows the Justice League has to have like a cube area. So like this makes sense.
Yeah. Dispatchers too. Like I like the idea of dispatchers. It's one thing to talk through, the story, the sense of humor, the voice cast, Aaron Paul, Jeffrey Wright, Laura Bailey, a bunch of like people in the gaming community too, like Moist Critical, Alana Pierce, Jacksepticeye, like all these guys. Like it's a very cool mix of talent. But then there's also the gameplay, which I thought looked legitimately stimulating. I don't play games like this often, if I understand what the gameplay is correctly, but I think it's a really, really great concept. So this is another one that I cannot imagine not working out. Replay is Robert Robertson, by the way. That's the character's name, Robert Robertson. So if you're looking for a fake name, that one, I guess, is taken. Big fan of this one.
But to be fair, all superheroes have alliteration in their name. Peter Parker.
Oh, I was trying to think of literally one other one, and I can't think of another. Well, okay. That's a C and a K, but I guess it is alliteration. Yeah, this one, I do wonder with this one, and I'm not
Bruce
the Banner, but how much are they going to make me pay for this one? I do have that question. Are Telltale games, and granted, at the end,
they are not usually full price games. They're usually in that, and granted, this is I'm talking about 10 some years ago, but they typically fell in the $29.99 to $39.99 range, which feels reasonable.
Yeah. I would hope that this is he's still going over there. I would hope that this is a $40 situation, but that remains to be seen. Continuing to jump around, trying to cover some ground. Mafia: The Old Country. We had gotten a trailer before that was very, very brief. This trailer was, again, mostly cinematically driven. Certainly less brief. This was fine. I don't know that it told us anything we don't already know.
Well, it's really doubling down on the fact that this is truly going to be a story-driven, emotional ride. It doesn't need to show a lot of combat or anything like that. It's just showing the strife and the bond, and from the perspective of someone getting into the mafia and things like that, and it'll probably fast forward to now you're the head guy,
Don.
Yeah. And this looks captivating. This is I think
captivating.
It's good to be Italian. I'm telling you, Italians, they be doing it.
Techtic's Italian, by the way, everybody.
So
I think this was giving, dare I say, Uncharted vibes in terms of very narratively driven, very linear. Mm-hmm. Some of the games, and we didn't see gameplay per se, but even some of the cutscenes we saw, I was getting some of those vibes. So obviously that's the best that I could hope for. So I would be into that for sure. Let's get a little ethereal. Let's get a little less narratively constructed. And let's talk about Project Robot, which doesn't even have its full name yet.
Yeah,
this
what the
trailer,
hell is that?
Well, here's the thing. I actually think it looks interesting. It gave me the heebies and it gave me the jeebies. I have never played Shadow of the Colossus, so I don't have a good reference point here, but my understanding is that this is going to be a deeply ethereal experience. There's not going to be a lot of talking. There's not going to be a lot of story. It's going to be, I don't know, you're doing probably a lot of the stuff that the trailer showed, to be honest with you.
It gave me, this is a post-humanity world. You're a robot ninja, and you're just traversing the void landscape.
I think, so I've only played The Last Guardian, though I do have Shadow of the Colossus. I've just never played it. The games are very much puzzly. It's platformer puzzle. If it's going to follow suit in the games that, this developer has made in the past, they are very much platformer puzzly games. So I'm trying to think, I don't want to make it a direct comparison to Zelda because the combat's
Would you compare it to the Talos Principle?
I don't think I played the Talos Principle,
so
I couldn't tell you.
A post-humanity, you're a robot solving puzzles.
Maybe.
Interesting. I might be on board.
So if it files, we didn't get a lot of information, but if it is in that same, game genre, it's going to be a lot of platformer puzzling, environmental puzzles.
I kind of agree. I'm open to that. I'm a little bit wondering. I'm a little bit wanting more information. So Gen Design, please get us that information. I don't know. I guess that's where we'll leave that one. Continuing to kind of jump around, getting a little bit more rapid fire here, but Outer Worlds 2. So here's the thing with Outer Worlds. I have not played Outer Worlds. I think this trailer did some very interesting things. I think it almost seems to have some realization that I did not play Outer Worlds, and they were like, hey, but you're definitely going to want to play Outer Worlds 2. I mean, it was very tongue-in-cheek. This trailer is basically saying hey, this game's going to be better for X and Y reasons, outright saying that, which I thought was interesting. I think it did look good. I still don't think it's my kind of experience, but it looked good. Did you guys play the Outer Worlds? Do you have any interest in Outer Worlds 2? This one kind of went by me, to be honest.
I meant to play the first Outer Worlds, especially because it came out right after I finished playing one of the Fallout games. for the first time, and I was like, this is really up my alley. And then, Starfield is sort of in the same vein, except the Outer Worlds is a little bit more humor than Starfield was. And it's always been on my radar. I've just never played it. And part of me is wondering, like, do I need to play the first game? Can I just jump into the second one? Like, I always have that guilty conscience jumping in at number 2.
Jump into the second one. It's very much akin to how Fallout 1 connects to Fallout 2. Like, there's backstory there, but you're starting from scratch, and it doesn't really connect. And that's what this is. This is space Fallout. Jump right in. Don't be afraid.
I certainly understand the guilty conscience thing because I've experienced that myself. But and again, based on just what the design of this trailer is, they are clearly wanting people who did not play the first one to hop on board with this one, hopefully with a limited barrier to entry. So I would think the answer to that question is certainly yes. At this point, I'm gonna turn it over to you guys. There are still some major pieces we haven't hit, but are there any that you guys want to make sure get mentioned here in our deep dive?
Immediately, all right,
yes. Please.
We got a 30-second trailer for this, but I have never been more hyped than to see a new Sonic Racing game announced, and Sonic Racing Crossroads. Like I said, I think it was only 30 seconds. You just see Shadow
of course you
unlocking his car, and hot damn, I have spent so much time, probably more time in the Sonic Racing games than in the Mario Kart games, which is wild.
They're better.
They are. And I can't wait. I'm so excited, man. I've replayed the old Sonic Racing games too many times. I need more. Vroom, vroom. Let's go.
And Illeagle, this isn't a hot take. Just the road vehicle dynamics in Sonic Racing is just, it drives better. Whereas in Mario Kart, it doesn't, the physics just doesn't feel there. You can't drift as well to kind of get it good. It hits better, I promise you. If you tried both of them, you would agree.
Yeah, I have
quiet.
Not, you're right. I have. Well, I don't know what to say. I have not tried it. I'm open to it. I'm a little bit indifferent. I haven't played a racing game in a while. That's just I'm just kind of out of the genre, and it sounds like this would be fairly different.
And it has a really good reward-based system playing through the games to try to 100% maps and things like that. It's just the way that they did these Sonic Racing games. They have a much better reward mechanism to both the way you drive as well as the way you play the tracks. It's just a very satisfying experience.
Well, I'll have to maybe give it a look. I don't know. This feels like it would be a Nintendo Switcher for me.
Yeah, I would say so.
It's coming to every platform.
And not to drag your wife into this podcast episode a second time, but I happen to know she loves a good kart racer. I know she's a big Mario Karter. I don't know. Maybe you guys try this out. Spice it up. Who knows?
I'll tell my wife, honey, we're going to spice it up. And this is how I'm going to do it. All right. Well, message received. Sonic Racing Crossroads, a big deal. Other big deals. Techtic, it sounds like you had one too. I don't know if you had the same one. But
yeah. So the one that I want to talk about next, there's a couple still that I want to talk about. As Thieves. So this was it seemed like it was a free-for-all heist game where everyone playing, it feels like it's going to be an online multiplayer. Everyone's trying to get the same trophy, and you can pick different classes, but my guess is you can also pick the same classes, and ultimately they're probably going to have a different rollout over time of new characters and things like that over time. Very interesting concept. My fear, and we've talked about this on the show, if this doesn't get that huge online thing, I fear that a concept like this is just going to get shut down shortly after.
I wrote down the same thing. It was giving me Deathloop vibes in terms of both the humor and just the tone of the game, as well as even the art style. And I feel like this game, we've talked about a couple of weeks ago, that the time when games shipped with both a single player campaign and then non-dedicated server multiplayer, where you were hosted on people's consoles as they played, that would work so well for a game like this. Give a short campaign, give some multiplayer, and then maybe it would have legs. Because I agree. I think this might do another one where it's a month, if that, and then it'll die.
Yeah, I think the concept is great. I think you said Deathloop, I would have said Dishonored, and I think are they the same?
Yep.
That's Arcane, right? So I was getting Dishonored vibes from this, maybe less so in the sense of humor and more so in the art style. But I agree pretty much with everything you said. I think this actually could have worked very well as a single player experience.
Or even a co-op heist game.
Not going to have any. Yeah, exactly. And it seems like they're just not interested in that at all. They're interested in skipping right to the, I assume, microtransaction-y full online thing. And Yeah, not into that. Miss me with that.
I had to throw a negative.
Great concept, though. Let me throw a positive in, but let me throw a kind of confused positive, is what I'll call it. And Techtic, I believe you are a Turok guy. Am I right about you being a Turok guy?
I'm
you played any of the Turok games?
Turok Evolution guy. And by the way, for those of you who haven't played this game, you have to play it on the GameCube because you can play as just regular raptors in multiplayer mode. And if you did jump and be at the like the change camera at the same time, your raptor can fly. And like I don't know how my brother and I figured out this hack, but it made our gameplays just zany and fun and plays the raptors. Play that game. It was glitchy in the best way.
So Turok Origins, there's a couple of things I wanted to highlight here. Cooperative multiplayer directly, they say, fully integrated into the campaign. So basically, you can just play through the campaign with up to 3 friends. The biomorphic suits allow you to basically absorb powers from enemies. I was actually recently, before even watching any of this stuff, I'm finding myself very much in the mood right now to take on a third-person shooter, and in particular one on the PS5, and I'm having a hard time finding one that kind of rustles my jimmies. And this one's not due for a while, obviously, but it feels like the kind of thing that might rustle my jimmies, so I'm sad that I have to wait. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up. In that sense, it makes me sad, but didn't get a whole lot of showing here, but I thought it looked pretty cool. Well, there's still quite a bit more, but we could frankly go on forever and ever and ever. So I think that's where I'm going to cut the cord.
I just have one more because it's crazy.
I'm going to sew the cord back together.
No, hold on, just one more.
Yeah, I'm sewing it for you.
She's sewing it back together. So
Labyrinth.
This.
Pac-Man, what you doing here, my guy? What is happening here? Yeah, I don't know.
Is Pac-Man public domain now? Like,
well, no. This is Bandai Namco who made Pac-Man, so I think they just have the rights and they can just do what they want. It is kind of my understanding of it.
Like, we don't have to discuss this, but this is crazy. Totally not my type of game. But like, bro, they made Pac-Man like metal or some shit. I don't know. It was insane. I loved it.
I'm happy to just see you excited for a side scroller.
It's based on, apparently, it's based on a Secret Level episode. I remember the show we talked about, Secret Level. There's an episode that's like this, and they were like, hey, let's actually just turn it into a whole game.
I love that for Pac-Man. Love it for him.
I like the idea of a side-scroller. I was getting Metroid Dread vibes. I mean, it's kind of being framed as a Metroidvania. I actually think this looked a little bit undercooked.
That was my
maybe
thought
it's
as
me.
Well. The animation sprites were a little off.
Yeah, and maybe that's me, again, just kind of having the context of, like, they made an episode of TV and they were like, this is so good, we should turn it into a game. Like, I don't know that development cycle makes the most sense. But I think the concept is cool, so it's possible this one might surprise me. And as Nerdbomber so eloquently put it, Pac-Man, what is you doing? I'll throw in one more, why not? Rematch. Do you guys watch the trailer for Rematch?
Yeah, Sifu Soccer.
Sifu Soccer, look, I mean, this is an interesting niche to be trying to sit in for a game because, you know, as far as soccer games go, in particular on like the PS5, you basically have like FIFA or like, I think actually they got bought, so I think it's now FC, but like there's no like, I don't want to call this a cartoony soccer game, but like this is not trying to be a hyper realistic, like you're actually playing soccer game. This is trying to be like, hey, it's Rocket League without cars, which like is kind of interesting to me. I think you could probably make the argument that the cars are like the big thing in Rocket League that make it so good and have so much longevity. But I don't know. I think with the correctly dialed gameplay, this could be really interesting. That's my take on Rematch.
I agree.
So, yeah. There's a bunch more we didn't mention. There was a Pal World DLC. Dave the Diver is getting an expansion. Slay the Spire 2, Ninja Gaiden, side-scroller, Virtua Fighter, which I don't know much about. There's a few things we had to skip here, but let us know what we skipped or that we talked about that we got completely wrong. We're over on Blue Sky. I am at OW-Illeagle86 at bsky.social. We have at OW Nerdbomber at bsky.social. And I believe Techtic, you're just Techtic, right? At techtic.bsky.social. And we, of course, have a main show account. It's at Online Warriors. There's no one. We took the one out. .bsky.social. So go check us out there. Let's start a conversation. We're off X. If you go over there, you're just going to find a tumbleweed blowing across our collective pages. We'll take a short break now before we come back to blast through What Are You Up To Wednesday, as well as Novocaine, and get into our weekly game segment. But speaking of the weekly game segment, we had some help. picking out the topic for the weekly game segment this week, we had the help of our fantastic Patreon producer, Mr. Stephen Keller. Every week, Stephen sits at a desk full of quiz topics, and he slaves away at determining what's going to make us look the most like idiots. He does a great job. He is a fantastic producer. We love having him around. He's been on the show a few times. That's one of the benefits he gets. He, of course, gets access to the monthly secret segment and vlog, input into the game segment, which I mentioned. And, of course, this producer shout out every episode. He is a knight. That is the highest of our 3 levels of Patreon support, so he gets all of those things. There's also a Squire level of support, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment, and a Page level, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment. I should mention, the Squire level also gets access to the monthly vlog. I blew my pitch there. Anyways, patreon.com/onlinewarriorspodcast is where you can go to get all the details on those levels of support. Consider saying hi to us, saying hi to Steven. Consider giving back to the show that you've hopefully been listening to and enjoying for a good long while, or maybe this is your first time. Either way, welcome. Happy to have you. Happy to have Steven. Happy to have all y'all folks. We'll take a short break now before coming back to talk about Novocaine.
Hi everyone, it's Nezgrak Skarsbrush, the Dragonborn wizard who got married to a ghost man. Do you like audiobooks? Do you like fantasy? Do you like closure? Then you'll love Fire-Breathing Kittens, a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition podcast. There's mystery, action, comedy, and friendship. And in my case, heartbreaking romance with a ghost man. Every episode is a one-shot with a complete plot and satisfying conclusion. So join us on our D&D quests and search for Fire-Breathing Kittens podcast for fantasy, action, mystery, and friendship.
All right, we are back to talk about Novocaine. You heard us talk about it at the top of the show. Jack Quaid plays a guy named Nathan Kane, and he apparently was called Novocaine in high school because he has the ability, or something gave him the ability, rare disorder, congenital insensitivity to pain, CIP, which apparently is real. I'm on Wikipedia right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did not know that. I thought this was just a funky, movie trope, which, and it still kind of is. This looks like a fun little jaunt. What I mainly wanted to say is that a movie already did this. Remember Kick-Ass? Kick-Ass did this.
Oh yeah.
Main character had this. So like in that sense, it's already been done. Now, granted, Kick-Ass had a whole lot else going on in terms of like what it was trying to do. This is essentially just trying to be, I guess, like a action thriller comedy. It's like one of those movies that's kind of trying to be a bunch of things at once. I'm not saying it won't do any of those things well, but it looked like fun.
Yeah, I'll probably watch it.
I don't know.
You know me. I'm not really a big action movie person, but I think this has enough of a shtick to make me get over the hump and believe like maybe this guy would do it. Like if you don't feel pain, why not stick your hand on a hot pan? I don't know.
I'd do it.
Well, yeah, this is one of those movies where you can tell, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing at all. If anything, it's a good thing that they came up with the original concept and like, well, I guess it was just one guy, Lars Jacobson, who wrote it. He came up with the original concept and then just probably sat in a room for weeks thinking like,
what
all right,
could he
this guy
touch?
can't feel pain. What could he do? Well, someone threw a knife at him, it went through his hand. That's a good bit. Like it's all stuff like that like admittedly it's, a parlor trick that you can kind of do over and over again and will probably remain effective for like an hour and a half. It'll be entertaining, right? And that's all this movie really needs to set out to be. I would hope this movie was made with a relatively low budget because I can't imagine it like blowing the doors off the box office. But this is, when we talk about mid-budget movies needing to come back, like, and this is a perfect example. This is not an indie. This is not a huge star power movie. Like Jack Quaid, he's an up and comer, I guess you would say, but like he's not a huge bankable star. You have a few other people around him who you might know of their existence, Jacob Batalon being the main one. But like, they're not spending a bunch of bank on stars. They're, probably keeping things pretty low key in production value. So like, I would hope the budget for this movie was like not, over $100 million. And at that point, you're positioned to like maybe put out a surprise hit that makes a studio its money back. This is the kind of movie that can start that trend, I think. So I think that's certainly to its credit. But we'll see, because this comes out March 14th, 2025. We're kind of just blasting by that one because we just had a massive game awards segment. Sorry to Jack Quaid. and all the people involved in Novocaine, but we didn't say we're not going to see it. We just said the trailer is the trailer. And we're moving on to What Are You Up To Wednesday. This is the part of the show where we talk about what we've been up to. And I'm going to say, Techtic was talking a big game before we got on the air here, saying that he had a good What Are You Up To Wednesday prepared. I mean, maybe you didn't say exactly those words, but you said it's a good thing I do a podcast where we can like play games and then talk about them. So that's me putting you on the spot. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to let you go first.
So one of the games that was shown in the showcase that we had discussed today was Slay the Spire 2. And boy, did this take me back to the weekend that I just had, because we played For the King 2, which is very similar vibes to this. This game is on Game Pass, and I gotta say, Nerdbomber and I have been absolutely addicted to this game. It's kind of a roguelike. It doesn't feel like a roguelike because each like go of it can be hours before you punish death or even make very far progress, but it's like still weirdly addicting and very fun, and it's even more fun and playable with people. It's very challenging if you have one person playing it. If you have two, it's a little bit easier, but it's still very challenging. So we're thinking if we die on this second playthrough with just the two of us, we're going to probably, because you could do it local, so you can just have multiple characters playing and it'll be all on the same controller, or you can divide it up into two controllers. There's controller configurations that you can do that allow you to play a full 4 people, even if you don't have 4 friends. So we're going to try that next. But this game is, you pick your class, and it's a turn-based game where you're kind of going through almost, it looks like a Settlers of Catan tile map to take out bad guys, level up, and satisfy your quest.
It's basically playing a tabletop RPG without needing somebody to run the game and a table, which is great. You also don't need dice. It rolls for you. But very much like your character has statistics and different strengths. So you're rolling for like luck initiative or something like that. Like each character, depending on the class that you pick, is tailored to certain different activities throughout the game, which is why it's important to have like, I don't know if you could even play this game alone, but it's important to have a well-rounded team. And they do have matchmaking online. If you don't have, people who want to play this with you, I think that you can just join a random game online. The only hiccup, like Techtic said, this game can run for hours through a specific campaign. So I don't know how that would work. Like you'd have to be communicating then over headset, however you connect to these random people via matchmaking and coordinate, I guess, once you get started.
Yeah, Slay the Spire, it's been on my list for a while.
Well, this is For the
I'm
King
worried.
too. That I just said that game reminded me of this.
Well, no, I know. I'm drawing parallels. So I'm trying to think about it. For the King 2 is also something that should be on my list, because I agree. I watched the Slay the Spire 2 trailer and I was like, this.
It actually looks like a more polished version of it, like a significantly more polished version. So if you were interested in that, you absolutely should be interested in this.
Again, though, if you like those, like,
that's the thing.
The turn-based
scares me.
Get you. But again, that's kind of no different though than playing like a tabletop RPG. You're just taking turns rolling dice to, take out enemies or complete a mission or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff you're saying definitely appeals to me. And like also, I don't know that you would necessarily call Inscription turn. I think Inscription is objectively turn-based, but it's very specific, right? So like, I don't think I can plant my flag in that as like an I like turn-based games thing now. But these are all things that I'm thinking about. So For the King 2, I'll probably add to the list as well.
Like I said, and it's crossplay too. It's one of those things where if you have friends who are playing it, I think it's no different than playing a board game, except it's virtual and a lot of the housekeeping is taken care of for you.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean with that, because there are certain board games that I played both in person and online, and sometimes online is just way easier. Like, it's not even close. So, because of the housekeeping.
My weekend, I'm just going to hop in there. Basically the same.
Right on.
Like, honestly, we played that together for most of the weekend. The rest of our weekend was taking care of our dog, who is getting surgery on Wednesday because he is a cyst that pussed everywhere. So that was a lot of our time spent.
Nice.
But we also watched the latest season of Trying as well when we weren't playing For the King 2, which that's an Apple TV Plus show. Again, it's something that flies really under the radar. It's a half-hour comedy about a couple who can't have their own kids, so they explore their various options. And it's just, regardless of, whether you have a family or not, like a family in terms of like your own kids or not, I feel like they do a really accurate portrayal of a real life couple, and it's just like a genuinely funny show. And I feel like not enough people are aware that it exists. So that exists, and there's 4 seasons of it, I believe. So check it out.
Shout out to Puss, by the way. Good shout out to Puss. Yeah, my update's going to be pretty brief. The holidays are holidaying, so I'm reading a lot of Christmassy books and watching a lot of Christmassy movies. The one, I think, noteworthy thing that I did, I already kind of mentioned in the Game Awards kind of updates. I just kind of randomly picked up Borderlands. I was like, I want to play a shooter, but I want it to be low-key. And in a lot of ways, Borderlands fills that bucket, but as I mentioned before, I'm finding myself to be increasingly dissatisfied with Borderlands is objectively a game that is built around grind, right? Like, I do think it is low key in the sense that, like, I don't think the pace is particularly fast most of the time. It doesn't demand a whole lot of you. It kind of just demands that you sit there and shoot at bullet sponges like a lot and get a marginally better weapon and then do it again, right? That's the whole thing. I will say Borderlands is the game that I picked up because I really wanted to pick up Returnal again, but I don't want to have my heart broken again by it being too hard. So that's kind of where I am right now in my gaming life, which is a hard place to be. Like I said too, I'm kind of looking for a third person shooter to pick up. I have Callisto Protocol, which I picked up, got about halfway through and never finished. So I'm thinking about maybe picking that one up again, but I'm undecided at this point. So in a very uncertain state video game wise, which is not a very good update, but it still kind of summarizes the life I've been living. But we can hop aboard the train to Quiz Town to greener pastures, get some quizzing done. Techtic had the choice between 2 topics today, and the topics are to some extent public to us, especially when there's a choice between 2. And I said that there was a choice that I was hoping he would make. So I'm now curious to see what the quiz topic is. So Techtic, without further ado, over to you. I guess before I go over to you, the quiz rankings. I am currently 14-9, Nerdbomber 14-11, Techtic 10-19, whoop whoop, and Steven 2-1. So Nerdbomber and I fighting for supremacy at this point. Let's see what happens. Techtic, the floor is yours.
All right. So the topic I picked was Christmas claymation movies.
Love that.
Thank
Love
God.
it.
That's the one I was hoping you were going to pick.
Well, Candles is next week then, so...
I was gonna say, Candles is next week. Don't get me wrong, I love Yankee Candle. This almost has me hoping I don't win because making a quiz about Yankee Candle might be really enlightening. So I changed my mind. I want to win, and I want to win deeply.
Was a pun intended there?
No, actually. Believe it or not. People are going to listen to that and not believe it. But no, pun was not intended. It's Techtic. Over to you, my man. Claymation Christmas movies. I expect to do well in this. I've watched them all, back to front to back, you name it.
Okay. So when was the first Claymation Christmas movie released?
Okay, and I go first. I have the better record. We're talking. Well, I'm not going to vocalize my process because I definitely have a process here. We're in the mid to late 50s here. I'm going to go ahead and say 1956.
I have parents.
Nice.
1930.
That's good.
My brain bounced, but I feel like they had been alive, or when they were born, the claymation had been alive for a while.
How old are your parents? All right, Techtic, hit us with it.
Wait, so what year did you say?
1930.
1930?
She went back.
Okay, these have been around by the time my parents were born, so...
Your parents were...
No, I know, that's why I said
they weren't even a twinkle in your parents' eyes.
Exactly, I'm saying they've been around a while.
Okay. So you were vastly under. Illeagle gets this one with 1964.
Yeah, I knew I was right in there, man. Nerdbomber, you have to think about when the TV
color
was invented
too.
Also.
I don't remember.
The TV, I think, was like an early 50s thing.
Time is a construct.
Couldn't have been, specifically, it had to be color TV. That's the important.
Did it?
Right. It was. All of them.
Yeah, I think they are all in color, yeah.
All right. So one of the biggest bangers from this suite of Christmas claymations is the Mr. Heat Miser song. I'm Mr. Heat Miser. I'm Mr. Sun. How long is this song?
Ooh, loved it. I love the shit out of this question.
Minutes and seconds, or you can do full seconds, but I'll calculate it either way, whatever you prefer.
I think it's a cool 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
That's a strong guess. I'm going to use my +1 here because I think you're very close. 2 minutes 16.
So the song drones on. 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
they do slow it down. They do the ba 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 ba, and they like really
that easily 2 minutes right there.
Crushes time. All right, well, it's a misuse of the +1, but I'm going to take the point regardless.
All right, one of the shorter ones is The Little Drummer Boy. This is only a 25-minute film. How many frames did it take to make this?
Techtic, I'm so impressed with these questions, by the way. Love these. I do not love The Little Drummer Boy one. It's probably my least favorite one. I've only seen it a handful of times. 25 minutes. We gotta be talking. I mean, you can calculate it. 1 second. Not to be a Techtic here, but I am going to try to calculate it. We're gonna say 2,000 frames. But actually, no, that's really stupid. 4,500 frames.
4,501.
All right, you both busted.
Stop.
You should have stuck with your...
Really?
Yeah, 2,400 frames.
Wow.
One of the reasons why I don't like that one is it's very choppy. You can see that it's less frames than cartoon animation. It's 2,400.
Because I initially was like, okay, 25 minutes, therefore a frame per second, and then add a little gravy. But and then I was like, that's not enough.
Which, by the way, that number tracks as someone who tried to do a lot of 2D sprites and did the animations. You can have a decent looking animation without a lot of frames in a second.
1 frame per second seems like basically nothing. That's crazy, man. But it's a good outcome for me because their +1 is gone. So I'm up 2-0 with 2 questions to go.
All right, little fact about me. Santa Claus is coming to town with Burger Miser Burger. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies. When was that released?
So this is maybe the top tier. This is the upper crust of Christmas claymation movies. I know it's not my turn to answer. I'm just saying that I agree.
The guy who was always going, toys!
Yeah,
1970. It's got to be an early one.
Yeah.
1970. I think it is one of the earlier ones, but I think there was a period of time for 5 years where they were just blasting these things out. I think by 70 they might have been done. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to go back to the previous answer. He said the first one was made in 64. I'm just going to say 64.
All right. Never doubt yourself, Nerdbomber. You nailed it. 1970 on the nose.
Let's go.
All right. Last one. You can either tie it up or Illeagle takes it home. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was known to have a lot of different puppets involved in the stop-motion claymation stuff. How many puppets?
I mean, obviously the question is how much is a lot in this context? I'm going to say 32. Just a number that's speaking to me. 32.
There was him as a baby with a black nose, him as a baby with a red nose, him without any antlers as a child with both. So there's 4. There was him getting his little antler pokes with both. Then I think he ventured with just the antler pokes with a red nose for a while. And then he grew up.
This is quite the chronology.
And didn't have a black nose because they weren't hiding it anymore. I'm going to say there's 8 in case I missed one.
Not for Rudolph. I'm talking how many puppets for...
Are you kidding? Oh.
For the... Is that
for the entire movie then.
Yeah.
What did he say?
To make Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I thought you meant Rudolph the animal himself. What was your answer?
Mine was 32. I also misunderstood the question.
Do you want to re-guess?
I'll stick with 32. I don't give a crap.
I mean, the island of misfit toys by itself is insane. So I'm going to say 60.
Wait, hold on. Do you guys both want to re-guess?
No, I'm good. I'm locked.
Okay.
I'm going to say 60.
Did you think there was 30-something puppets for Rudolph alone?
You talking to me? Yeah, I did. I don't know how it works.
Well, Nerdbomber takes this one. You're all tied up. 200 puppets were used to make this movie.
Yeah, I was thinking all the different elves, they all are in the same place at one point singing with the bumble and everything. There's just a lot of puppets going on.
Yeah, well, Hermie doesn't like to make toys. All right. Well, we are into the tiebreaker town. I assume there's a text-in question awaiting us, Techtic.
There is. How many toys were on the island of misfit toys?
Are we talking puppets, or is this holistically what the lion said?
The lion said the number?
I don't know. Or maybe it was the Jack in the Box said the number. Somebody said a number.
I didn't think there was a number. I'm walking by faith, not by sight. I've submitted my answer.
All right, so Illeagle takes this one home. There were 19 toys on the island of misfit toys. Illeagle guessed 17. And Nerdbomber guessed 100. That's like half the puppet budget.
So here's the thing, though. I could have sworn, and this is like a question open to interpretation type thing. I could have sworn the Jack in the Box said something like, there are hundreds of toys here.
Well, yeah, but that's interpretation. How many do you, I think what I took the question to be is, how many do you actually physically see on the island?
I think y'all are overthinking my question.
I think Nerdbomber did. I think I thought it the exact correct amount, which is why I got it right. Or as close to right as I did. I moved to 15 to 9.
I do want to give Nerdbomber credit, though. She fought back. So.
Oh, yeah. There was some bite there. Nerdbomber at 14 and 12. Techtic remains at 10 and 19, which means that's right, folks. I get the golden opportunity to make a quiz about Yankee Candle. I'm going to go get started right now. Can't wait. We thank you all for joining us here at the Online Warriors podcast. We are planning on having a Christmas drop. Is that true? Can I say that? Is it fair to say that on the air?
Yeah, I think so.
Right now, the plan is for us to have it. If we don't put out an episode next week, I'm sure we're fine. We just think, Christmas time, things happen. But we are intending to do a Christmas drop. So, wake up in the morning, go under your Christmas tree. There might be a little package waiting there for you. And it might be a fresh, hot off the presses episode of the Online Warriors podcast. So be on the lookout for that. In the meantime, have a great week. Stay safe and keep on podcasting.